T was just past midnight in Seoul when the call came through. Quiet, hesitant, but unmistakably urgent. On the other end of the line was a voice Jin hadn't heard in a long while, soft, tremulous, and unmistakably maternal. It was Jungkook's mother. And though she tried to maintain composure, the strain in her voice betrayed a sea of emotion bubbling just beneath the surface. "Seokjin see," she began gently. "Is he okay?" There was no need for explanation. Jin already knew what she meant. The entire internet had been ablaze for the past 48 hours. Videos, screenshots, AI-enhanced images, some purporting to show Jungkook holding hands with a woman outside his private residence, others feeding into a darker narrative that labeled him a womanizer, a deceiver, a fallen idol. It was the kind of storm that could shake even the most seasoned celebrity to his core. And yet, the silence from HYBE had only made it worse. Jin, who had just returned from a Gucci concept shoot in Milan and barely had time to rest, stood frozen with the phone pressed tightly to his ear. Not because he didn't know how to answer, but because he did. He had seen the footage. He had scoured the timelines, the AI breakdowns, the facial discrepancies. He had heard the fan chatter. And most of all, he had seen Jungkook's name trend globally for all the wrong reasons. As the eldest member of BTS, Jin knew this wasn't just gossip. This was war. "I don't know yet," he said finally. "But I'm looking into it." The line went quiet for a moment. Then came a breath the kind a mother takes when trying to hold back tears. "He's not answering my calls, Seokjin. Not since the video went viral. I just want to hear his voice." Jin's heart ached. In all their years together, through every tour, photo shoot, and awards ceremony, Jin had always regarded Jungkook as more than a brother. He was the baby of the group, fiercely talented, undeniably kind, but also vulnerable in ways the public rarely saw. And this wasn't just some clickbait scandal. This was about dignity, about character, about whether the world still believed in who Jungkook was. Jin didn't make any promises. He couldn't. But after hanging up, he did what he always did when things got serious. He pulled out a notebook and started writing. Names, dates, locations, the metadata from the original clip, fan accounts from Florida, every little inconsistency, every timestamp. And then he opened a second folder on his encrypted laptop, one labeled Protect JK. In the days that followed, Jin quietly launched his own personal research. Not as a member of BTS, not as a Gucci ambassador, but as a brother who knew that silence could be fatal. He reached out to contacts in HYBE's cybersecurity division, combed through internal monitoring reports, and even consulted with AI video forensics experts, the same ones used by luxury brands to detect counterfeit content. His question was simple. Was the video real? The answer, however, wasn't. Because nothing in this story was black or white. Some frames showed Jungkook's gait slightly altered. The lighting inconsistencies hinted at deepfake overlays. There were anomalies in shadow behavior, motion blur that didn't match normal camera physics, and most tellingly reflections on nearby glass surfaces that didn't align with the subjects in frame. But just as Jin began to feel relief, another video surfaced, this time clearer, more convincing, and with multiple angles. For every piece of evidence that pointed to fabrication, there was another that stoked doubt. And so, Jin dug deeper. He reached out discreetly to Jungkook's stylist. No one had seen him in 3 days. The company line was tight. "We respect the privacy of our artists." But behind closed doors, a different story was unfolding. HYBE had already initiated an internal review. The executive chat logs were buzzing. And Jin, though technically not obligated to get involved, refused to stay silent. He remembered the last thing Jungkook had said to him backstage in Busan, months before his solo world tour. "Hyung, promise me one thing. If the world ever turns on me, you'll still believe in who I am." And Jin had promised. So when the second call came from Jungkook's mother, this time almost inaudible through her tears, Jin did what he knew he had to do. He got on a plane, not to confront Jungkook, not to scold him, but to find him. He flew under the radar, dressed plainly, no entourage, no PR. He landed in Jeju, where rumors suggested Jungkook had retreated to a private villa owned by an old friend. And sure enough, after 3 hours of driving through winding roads and misty hills, he found the house. The moment Jungkook opened the door, the truth flooded the air without a single word spoken. His eyes were tired, not from guilt, but from exhaustion, from the burden of having the whole world question his morality based on 30 seconds of footage. "I didn't do what they say I did," Jungkook whispered. "I swear, Young, I know," Jin said quietly. They sat in silence for a long time. Jin listened as Jungkook shared his side, how he had been followed for weeks, how he suspected some of the footage was pieced together from different times, and how the people he trusted most were suddenly questioning his integrity. He hadn't spoken to his mother, he said, not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't know how to explain a storm he didn't create. "I feel like I'm losing control of my life," Jungkook said, "like I'm being written out of my own story." Jin leaned forward. "Then we rewrite it together." And from that moment on, Jin took charge. He made calls to lawyers, to digital rights experts. He coordinated with HYBE's public relations team and advocated for a statement not a defensive one, but one rooted in dignity. He arranged for Jungkook's mother to visit quietly. No cameras, no press. Just a mother and her son reunited in the eye of the hurricane. And when the media asked why Jin had gone quiet on social media, why he had postponed his next Gucci shoot, why he had canceled his scheduled press event in Tokyo, no explanation was given. Because some stories are bigger than headlines. Some stories are about protecting someone you love from being reduced to a rumor. Behind closed doors, Jin's research continued. He compiled a timeline, not just of the viral content, but of Jungkook's real movements in the days leading up to the alleged incident. Hotel check-ins, staff testimonies, traffic cam footage. And slowly, piece by piece, a different narrative began to emerge, one of manipulation, distortion, and possibly even deliberate sabotage. Yet Jin never went public with these findings. Because for him, the goal wasn't to win the internet, it was to save a soul. He wrote a letter not to fans, not to the press, but to Jungkook, a handwritten one. It read, "You are not defined by videos. You are not measured by headlines. You are loved deeply, unconditionally, not because you are perfect, but because you are real. Let them chase shadows, we'll stand in the light." Jungkook cried when he read it. So did his mother. And in the quiet of that mountain villa, amid the chirping cicadas and the slow hum of a distant sea, the two of them, Jin and Jungkook, made a promise that no matter what happened next, they would face it not as idol and fan favorite, not as brand ambassadors or solo artists, but as brothers. Jin's research would never be released to the public. But it didn't need to be, because the people who mattered already knew the truth. And in the end, maybe that's what being a brother really means. Not standing in front of someone, but standing beside them when the world demands you choose a side. Even if that means walking through fire together. Even if that means staying silent in the spotlight so your brother can breathe in the shadows. Even if it means telling a mother, "Don't worry, I've got him." Because he does. He always has. And maybe, just maybe, he always will. While Jin remained discreetly stationed at the private villa where Jungkook had taken refuge, the ripples of his quiet investigation began reaching the upper levels of the company and eventually landed on the desk of Bang Si-hyuk himself. It was only a matter of time. What started as speculation had evolved into global frenzy. International tabloids, TikTok gossipers, AI-enhanced exposés all converged into a singular narrative. Jungkook, the once untouchable golden matinee of BTS, had fallen into scandal. But Bang Si-hyuk, the founder and chairman of HYBE, had been here before. He had weathered controversies, market crashes, military enlistment fears, and anti-fan protests. But what worried him this time wasn't just the press. It was Jin. Jin hadn't said a word to the media. He hadn't made a statement, posted a tweet, or dropped a cryptic Weverse post. But his silence wasn't passive. It was deliberate, and anyone who truly knew him, especially Bang Si-hyuk, could sense it. Jin was hunting the truth. So when the chairman requested a private briefing, the internal team was ready. Jin's silent research had left breadcrumbs, access requests to security logs, unusual data analytics from HYBE's private servers, whispers among staff about encrypted files tagged with JK case and video reckon. It was only a matter of time before Si-hyuk connected the dots. The confidential meeting lasted under 15 minutes. The CEO didn't yell. He didn't panic. He just listened, eyes narrowed as the digital team laid out what Jin had discovered. The footage wasn't just edited, it had likely been generated using AI tools only available to private actors, deep learning layers, shadow inconsistencies, false timestamps, even geotag overlays to manipulate location metadata. Whoever did this wasn't just trying to embarrass Jungkook, they were trying to break him. And so, for the first time in over a year, Bang Si-hyuk picked up the phone and called Jin directly. He didn't begin with pleasantries. He didn't ask about Milan or Tokyo or even Jungkook's condition. He simply asked one question: is it true? Jin didn't need clarification. Yes, he replied. He didn't do it, but someone wants people to believe he did. And then, after a long pause, Bang Si-hyuk said, "Then we go to war." The next 72 hours unfolded, like a global chess match. Jin returned to Seoul under complete anonymity, protected by an internal task force usually reserved for A-list emergencies. Not even his stylist knew his whereabouts. Simultaneously, Bang Si-hyuk activated the company's legal arm. Not the usual PR team. Not the marketing department. This was a crisis operation, an elite unit used during corporate espionage threats and billion-dollar lawsuits. And the mission was simple: clear Jungkook's name before the lie calcified into truth. But time was running out. Across social media, the narrative was spiraling. New witnesses came forward. AI-generated chat logs pretending to show flirty messages, even manipulated interviews. The media didn't want facts. They wanted flame. And in the eye of the storm was Jungkook's mother, who had gone from silent grief to full-blown panic. She messaged Jin again, this time with a single sentence: "Please bring my son home." And so, Jin did. He arranged a quiet flight. No press, no team, no staff, just him and Jungkook, side by side, walking onto the tarmac under moonlight. No words exchanged, just a hand on Jungkook's shoulder, grounding steady and firm. Back in Seoul, HYBE's building was lit even past midnight. Every floor was awake. Every screen was open. The agency wasn't just managing damage control, they were preparing a counteroffensive. The plan was threefold. Drop a comprehensive forensic breakdown of the video, line by line, shadow by shadow, hosted independently by a third-party international cybersecurity firm. Release raw behind-the-scenes footage of Jungkook's movements across that week, travel logs, rehearsal cuts, time-stamped airport security footage without commentary, just facts. And then, deploy the final card: Jin. Because no matter how sophisticated a lie becomes, the moment truth walks in wearing Gucci and speaking from the heart, the world listens. Jin's first public appearance since the scandal was unannounced, no press release, no teaser. Just him stepping into a Weverse livestream framed against a bare wall, hair still tousled, voice calm, and his first words sent shockwaves. "I'm here because silence is no longer the kind thing to do." He didn't address the scandal directly. He didn't mention names. But he spoke of love, of loyalty, of how the hardest part of fame isn't being watched, it's being misrepresented. And then he said something that shattered the fandom into emotional chaos. Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone you love is to believe in their quiet, even when the world is loud. That line trended globally for 12 hours. But behind the scenes, the real turning point came when Jin submitted a sealed folder to Bang Si-hyuk. Inside was a full technical deconstruction of every manipulated asset, complete with data trails tracing some files to a location outside Korea. It wasn't just fan theory, it was evidence. And the origin point shocked everyone. A private marketing server used by a rival entertainment conglomerate. HYBE's legal team wanted to move fast, sue, expose, humiliate. But Jin said no, he had a different idea. Let's not fight them in the dark, let's invite the light. And so, the company made a bold choice. They released everything, every document, every log, every expert commentary, not buried in legal filings, but on their own transparent, interactive page. With no login required. Open source proof. And at the bottom of the page, a single message signed by Jin. This is not about canceling someone else. It's about not canceling each other. That strategy worked. The tide began to turn. Articles shifted tone. Fans apologized. Even influencers who had jumped on the hate bandwagon began retracting their takes. Suddenly, Jungkook's narrative wasn't guilty until proven innocent. It was wronged, but rising. And perhaps most powerfully of all, Jungkook posted a single picture. Him, standing beside Jin, both in casual clothes, faces lit by a kitchen lamp. No filter, no glamour, just brothers. Real. The caption read, "When I lost my voice, he spoke for me." Overnight, brands who had hesitated to associate with Jungkook came flooding back. Sponsorships reinstated, tour dates restored, Global media outlets now framed the incident as a lesson in digital manipulation, even prompting international discussions about AI regulation and the ethics of viral accusations. But none of that mattered to Jin. What mattered was the quiet moment 3 nights later, when he sat beside Jungkook on the rooftop of Hybe's HQ, the skyline glittering like stars scattered across concrete. Jungkook looked over and asked, "Why did you fight so hard for me?" Jin smiled, eyes distant. "Because once, someone did the same for me, and I remembered how that felt." The world may never know the full extent of what was lost and reclaimed during those weeks, but for those who lived it, one truth became clear. Scandals fade, fame fluctuates, but love, the kind rooted in brotherhood, in shared stages, in sleepless nights and whispered fears, that stays. And in that love, Jin found his purpose again, not just as a performer, not just as a brand ambassador, but as a protector of truth. And for Jungkook, who had once stood on stage singing of dreams and youth, this moment was a rebirth, not just as an idol, but as a man who had been seen, defended, and ultimately believed.